Whether you are a new puppy owner who is trying to give your dog the best information, or you have an adult dog and you're trying to stop some unwanted behaviors, it's really important that you understand how to establish leadership with your dog. If you do a search on YouTube or a quick search on Google, it seems like a pretty polarizing topic. Everything from doing alpha rolls with your dog and never allowing them to walk in front of you, all the way to completely ignoring some of these unwanted behaviors. But I want you to think about maybe a teacher in your life that you really liked, or a sports coach who was able to motivate you to work a little bit harder. These people were great leaders. Those people were able to bring out the best in you, and you didn't have to listen to them. You wanted to. After training thousands of dogs as a professional dog trainer, the one thing that I've noticed is the people who get success the fastest with their dogs are the same people that can overcome unusual training challenges along the way. These people really understand how to be a great leader for their dogs. They know when to give their dogs a little bit more freedom. They know when to allow their dogs to make some choices on their own, but they're there to set them up to be successful. And if they make the wrong choice, then they're there to guide them through the process. This is really a video I wish I had before I was a first-time dog owner. I made all the wrong choices. That's why I felt it was so important to share this with you today. We recently did a live stream for subscribers that talked about when to allow your puppy to make their own choices, when to allow them a little bit more freedom. We talk about puppyhood, indoor freedoms, some outdoor freedoms. In essence, it is a textbook about how to be a good leader for your dog. And this is the thing that I wish I knew before I was a puppy owner. So, past Ken Steep, this is future Ken Steep. This video is for you, and welcome back to McCann Dogs. When we talk about leadership, we have a great video on the channel. It's actually linked in one of the cards above, but we have a great video that talks about being a great leader for your dog is setting them up to be successful and not having to tell them, no, not that, no, this way, no, this, you can't do that. It's really important that we set our dogs up to be successful. It's also really important that we follow through and show them how to be successful if they make a mistake, that we have a leash or a line, a house line on them or something like that. And I wanted to talk, starting off, with a little bit of freedom in the home. When do you know? So let's talk maybe how you and I will bring a puppy sort of into more areas of freedom, giving them more opportunity, more access to rooms.
Yeah, one of the things that we'll do when we have a young dog is we will control where they can go with some of the things that I talked about before, whether it's baby gates, leashes, crates, that type of thing. And typically what we'll do is when we're ready to give them a bit of freedom, we might start off by keeping them in the same room as us, but maybe we don't watch them quite as closely anymore.
Right.
So maybe like we're cooking dinner, for example, we'll barricade the puppy in the kitchen with us, and we might make dinner, chat, we're sort of thinking about each other, and we'll just glance down at the dog from time to time and maybe give them something to do. And that would be their first little taste of freedom, where I'm not like literally following them around and watching their every move and every decision.
Yeah.
Which is what I would do for the first little bit that I have the puppy.
Yep.
And then from there, I might open the opportunity up that they could have like the kitchen and the hallway, for example, and they could roam in and out of those two places. And I'm not really going to worry too much about it. And when I feel comfortable giving the dog the freedom, I know that my dog already knows how to ask me to go outside. So if I'm giving my dog a bit of freedom and they do need to go out, we've already worked through that thing. I also know before I give my dog freedom if I can trust whether they're going to chew things in my house or not. So if I feel pretty good that they understand what they're allowed to chew and what they are not, then again, I might feel more comfortable giving them a bit more freedom. And then lastly, how well do they listen? Do they respond to me when I say leave it? Do they get off the couch when I ask them to? Do they stop barking when I ask them to? Do they come to me when I ask them to? Can they sit? Can they down? When I'm getting good listening skills, then I can sort of say, okay, I feel confident that I'm in pretty good control. My dog's, responsible, making good choices. Now I'm going to maybe give the dog a little bit more freedom. So what we don't recommend that you do is give the dog freedom and then see what happens.
Right. We
recommend giving your dog freedom when you feel pretty darn confident that your dog is going to knock it out of the park and do a great job. And it is, for some dogs, it takes time. And for our dogs, it hasn't been the same amount of time for each dog. It hasn't been like, okay, they're 6 months, let's just let them have free range. Some dogs earned it a bit quicker just based on their training or their personality. And other dogs dogs needed to be monitored a lot longer than others, again, based on how they were doing with their training. We had a 9-year-old, we adopted a 9-year-old dog, and we had to go back and do things with him that, you know, we did with our puppies because he had never lived in a house before. He lived in a barn.
Right.
So,
and just depends. To interrupt really quickly, maybe you have a rehome dog. Maybe you've gotten a dog from a shelter. You're going to go back to those first steps because it's all about introducing your dog to this space with good information. It's all about really letting them know that, you're worth listening to. So using something like a crate is such a valuable tool when it comes to in your home, when it comes to sort of managing their interactions, when it comes to, making them see so much value in you. Because every time they come out of that crate, they get to do something with you. It really builds that drive and that understanding and desire to be right and do stuff with you. So, don't overlook your crate.
When we're first starting to give our dog freedom, I wouldn't necessarily do that for the first time and go to work for 8 hours. I might, leave them loose in one room, and I might go down to the end of the driveway and get the recycling bin or, grab the mail or whatever it might be. And then I come back in and see what happened. Yeah. And if things are going really well, then I might, leave them for a few minutes when I run down to the general store to get some milk or something, and then build in slowly from there. And when we first give our dogs freedom, especially if we're going to be leaving them alone, we don't give them free rein of the house. We might give them free range of the house eventually when they're older and we are we're home, but when we leave, when we leave, we don't really give any of our dogs free range of our house. We have an area that we sort of confine them in. It's very large, and they have their dog beds, and they have water, and they have their bones, and so that's sort of what we do when we leave. I think Grand Slam would probably just plop himself on the couch and sleep there for the whole time. But but again, the point is not to try your luck to test the waters a little bit before you jump in with 2 feet. For sure. And I think John Saccone asks a really important question. Is there an age for that? Yeah. And I sort of touched on that before. No, not really. Right. I would say for us, generally, and again, this is coming from 2 professional dog trainers, I wouldn't dream of leaving my dog loose on their own and even really give them a lot of freedom in the house prior to 8 months to a year, I would say. And sort of what the litmus test is that they aren't making mistakes when we're there. They aren't making bad choices when we're there. Not chewing things, not going to the bathroom in the house, listening well in the house, being respectful, making good choices. That's when we would say, okay, I think you're ready for a little bit more responsibility. But if you're still getting nipping and biting and unwanted barking and, they're stealing stuff in your house that you're not supposed to, you better believe they are going to have a party when you're gone, or they might be barking when they're not supposed to. Your dog is going to be the best indicator to you as to whether they're ready for that or not based on their behavior. Let's talk about how we allow our dogs more and more freedom when they're outside. Some of the common things that we'll do with them, how we'll start to remove the training wheels and how we'll make sure that they're maintaining great responses when we are outside with them. Yeah, so Ken and I often walk our dogs out in the big fields at our training school. It's about 22 acres of open fields. So there is a lot of opportunities for our dogs to take off and run away from us if they really wanted to. So when we're first working on this with our younger dogs, when we go for big walks and there's a lot of opportunity for our dogs to really possibly run away, we will put long lines on them, up to 25 feet, and we will let our dogs have a bit of freedom and they drag that line around. And we might even start off by holding the line in our hands and practicing our recall, practicing our response to neigh, practicing some random downs. So we say lie down, the dog will lay down. So we work on some training skills. And then once our dogs can do it with the leash in our hand or the line in our hand, then we'll let the line drag around. And the line is there so that if I call my dog back and my dog decides that chasing the cars down the fence line or digging in this hole over here is more important than listening to me, I can pick the end of the line up and I can give it a little tug to encourage the dog to come to me. And then we can play games as well. So often I'll have some treats or some toys, and I'll sneak the toy and put it in the back of my pants or under my shirt so the dog can't see it. And then I'll call them, and when they turn and look at me, I'll say yes, and then I'll literally take off running the other direction so that they race across the field, and when they catch me, we'll play like a really awesome game of tug, so that the dog, I have a lot of dogs that will run out and they'll turn around and they'll look at me because they're like, okay, are you going to call me? They almost don't even want to go investigate because they want to do the whole running and chasing and play thing. And that just conditions the dog to really love to like look for me and pay attention to where I am. And then I can start to give them a little bit more freedom. And then eventually, once the dog's doing a good job, I will start to shorten the line over a series of months until I can't remember the last time I had to use the leash to redirect them, and then I'll take them for off-leash runs from there. But it's a very slow process, depending on the dog.
And it's not necessarily like you take one step forward, you take the next step forward. You may find that when you shorten that leash to, or shorten that line to like a third, and your dog makes a mistake, so you go back to half a leash or 2/3 of a leash.
Just like I said earlier, I put my 12-year-old dog on a line today or yesterday.
Yeah, it's a dynamic process, and you may encounter like new distractions. Maybe there's something that your dog's never seen, and it's what's really important here is that you identify those challenges and that you know exactly what you're going to do to train through them. So putting your dog on the line and working on that recall. Now, if you enjoyed this video, you're really going to enjoy our leadership playlist. So click that card right there. If this is your first time on the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We publish new videos every single week to help you to have a well-behaved four-legged family member. On that note, I'm Ken. See you in the next video.